Good morning, Kuhner country. Okay, look, I got to tell you, I think Trump is pretty much now at his breaking point. I don't blame him. Jerome Powell has been maybe the worst Fed chair we have ever had. And look, this is not going to be a wonky or, policy in the weeds type of a segment, my friends, coming in. Look, you look at President Trump's achievements, and we have now just passed the 6-month mark. It is truly, absolutely historic and remarkable what he has done in such a short period of time. And strictly speaking now, because he's had so many accomplishments, I'm not, the border, Iran, the nuclear weapons program, I could go on and on and on. On the economy alone, we are now seeing something that has rarely ever been seen before. $10 trillion with a T. Now investment is beginning to pour into the United States. Factories are being built, plants all over the country. We're seeing record tariff revenue pour in. We're starting now to see economic growth begin to really take off. Middle-class wages for working middle-class people are now seeing a rise that we have not seen in over 30 years. These are just some of the latest economic numbers. Inflation is now being tamed, finally. I wish it'd go a little faster, but it's coming down. The one thing that stands in the way, the one last piece in the puzzle, are interest rates. And as you know, we have Dan O'Connell. He's an advertiser on our show. I occasionally interview him, and you can hear it during the breaks on our show. He's one of the top real estate agents in all of Massachusetts, southern New Hampshire. I highly recommend him, but that's not the point. The point is, when I talk to Dan O'Connell, I say, Dan, what's the one thing that is holding back the entire housing market? Why is the housing market, which is the last sector now, that still remains flat on its back? It is weak. It is anemic. People aren't buying homes. People aren't able to sell homes. What is it? And I asked him, I said, is it the tariffs? He said, no, I'm telling you, it's not the tariffs. It's the high interest rates. Jerome Powell is strangling the housing market with these ridiculously high interest rates. He's suffocating the entire housing market. And if he would just cut the rates, housing would boom. And then the entire economy would be clicking on all cylinders. So President Trump has been asking now for Jerome Powell over and over and over, to the point he's practically demanding, saying, lower the damn interest rates. What is wrong with you? We know the economy now is really taking off. Gas prices are dropping. Again, I tanked up this week. It's under $3 a gallon. $52. I filled up my car, my vehicle completely. Under Biden, it was $80. So, look, it's $28 a week. It's not peanuts. It's over $100 a month. So you're starting to see energy come down, gas come down. Some eggs have come down, definitely. Some of the, housing has not come down. Housing is still extremely expensive. Rents are way too high. Housing costs, or the value of homes, home prices, way, way, way too high. Especially in places like Boston and New York and some of these big metropolitan areas. But overall, in the economy, there's no question now. It's not like it was under Biden. Quite the opposite. The inflation is cooling. Inflation is now, it's at a minimum stabilized. It's not going up. And in some places, it's starting to come down. So Trump is making, to me, a very solid argument. Inflation now is at 2.7%, 2.5%. He goes, lower the rates. Inflation is no longer a threat. And if there is an inflationary problem, then you can always re-raise the rates. So what's the problem? And I'll tell you what the problem is. Jerome Powell is clearly trying to sabotage Trump's economic recovery. There's no question. He's trying to sabotage and undermine Trump's presidency, because you look at dozens of other countries who have higher inflation than we do, whose economy is not doing as well, and their rates are lower. Not higher, they're lower. So why aren't ours commensurate at least with theirs? So it's obvious this is a concerted attempt by Powell. And remember, in 2024, when inflation under Biden was much higher, it was way over 3% still, he lowered the rates. So to try to help Joe Biden win the election, when inflation was still a problem, Jerome Powell, too late Powell, as Trump calls him, he's always too late on everything, lowered the rates for Joe Biden. So to help Joey and eventually Kamala Harris win the election. Now, yesterday, President Trump, and this was a beautiful thing to watch. I was laughing. I'm telling you, I almost busted a gut yesterday. Trump made the visit to the Federal Reserve headquarters in Washington. And on top of everything else now that is causing problems for Jerome Powell, Trump wants him gone. In fact, I think most of the country wants him gone, with pressure building and building for him to finally drop the rates. He now is facing potential criminal charges. In fact, Congresswoman from Florida, Anna Paulina Luna, has now referred the DOJ to literally open up a criminal prosecution against Too Late Powell. Why? Because he has lied under oath about the cost overruns on the renovations to the Federal Reserve headquarters. This is a massive, burgeoning scandal. In fact, for whatever reason, the media, well, we know the reason, the media does not want to cover, because they love the fact that Powell is keeping interest rates artificially high in order to try to strangle or suffocate the Trump economy. Now, just so that you know, they have been spending years renovating the headquarters of the Federal Reserve. Why they needed to renovate it? There was nothing wrong with the building to begin with. Okay? But let that go. Joey basically signed off on a blank check. It was supposed to cost, listen to this, $1.9 billion to renovate, not to rebuild, just to freaking renovate the Federal Reserve building and that whole area around the Federal Reserve. It's now going to cost $3.1 billion. They're $1 billion over budget. First of all, $1.9 billion is obscene. They were robbing us blind on $1.9 billion. And now the question is, where did all the money go? And that's what Powell has been asked repeatedly under oath. And now it appears he is involved in a very serious corruption scandal where money has simply disappeared. It has been embezzled. It has been stolen. Contractors are getting paid ridiculous amounts of money. Remember, this is our taxpayer money. And so Trump went to finally see this renovation that was taking place. And you see, if you can picture him, he's in a blue suit, red tie, you know, his usual Superman outfit, his suit and tie, and he's got a white hard hat on. and Powell is right beside him. He's got his white hard hat on. And there's Trump, and they're doing a tour. And Senator Tim Scott is right beside Trump. The reason why Senator Tim Scott is there is because he sits on the subcommittee that's overseeing this massive boondoggle. And Scott is the one that's uncovering these massive cost overruns and that Powell lied to under oath. And guess what? Guess what? Trump is now starting to ask, what are you guys spending all of these billions of dollars on? Roll cut one, a mic.
We're looking at the construction, and we're with the chairman, as you know. Chairman, come on over. And we're just taking a look at what's happening. And it's a tough construction job. They're building basements where they didn't exist or expanding them, and a lot of very expensive work. There's no question about it. And Tim has been with me for a long time, and you're in charge of the committee.
Indeed. One of the reasons I wanted to see it was the overruns of the expenses, wanted to figure out why.
Yeah. Trump says, yeah. So Powell is now right beside him. Oh, you got to see what happens next. 617-266-6868 is the number if you want to be part of the show. Okay, so, all right, so picture Trump. He's now at the Federal Reserve headquarters where the renovations are taking place. All these construction guys are working around him, with their hard hats. He's got his hard hat on. Tim Scott, who heads the committee that is overseeing all this, and he's like, these cost overruns are insane. So, and you got, of course, Jerome Powell, and he's got his hard hat on too, and you could tell he's very uncomfortable for many reasons. A, Trump is calling for him to be canned, and he should be fired. And B, now they're going and asking questions about how is this going from $1.9 billion. And remember, again, these are just renovations. They're not building a new building from the bottom up. This is just, they're revamping it. That's it. So how did it get to the original $1.9 billion is what I'd like to ask, but let that go. Now, they've just found out it's going to be an extra $1 billion in cost overruns. $3.1 billion. So, Trump is there. Powell is right beside him. The media is right in front of him. And Trump says, we're here because we just found out it's all going to cost at least $3.1 billion. It went up from 1.9 to 3.1. And we're looking around like, what are you guys doing down here? And then Powell starts to shake his head. Like, that's not true. That's not true. So he then says, I haven't heard of that. What do you mean 3.1 billion? And Trump looks really annoyed. And and he just, okay, you insist. And he was ready. And he pulls a letter from his side jacket pocket. And he says, and he gives it to him in front of all the cameras. He goes, this just came from you, from your own Federal Reserve. You see? Look, he points to he goes, you see, Federal Reserve, that came from your office. Telling us now that the cost has just ballooned, exploded, another extra $1.2 billion. And Powell is like, this came from us? And Trump's like, yeah, who does that? Roll cut 1A, a mic.
So we're taking a look, and it looks like it's about $3.1 billion. It went up a little bit, or a lot. So the 2.7 is now 3.1.
I'm not aware of that.
Yeah, it just came out.
Yeah, I haven't heard that from anybody at the Fed.
Yeah, it just came out.
Our notes had it about 3.1 as well. 3.1, 3.2. This came from us?
Yes. I don't know who does that.
So anyway, so yes, Tim Scott's beside him, and he says, yeah, I just heard the same thing. We're looking at, 3.1. Maybe even 3.2 billion. And Trump's like this annoyed look on his face, like, and you could tell he's like, you think you're playing us for fools? Like you're going to do the whole Mr. Magoo act now? Like you're blind, you don't see anything, you know? So he goes, well, here, look. Well, and he's pointing his finger. He goes, look, that's you. That's from your office right there. So we went from 1.9 billion to 2.7 billion to now 3.1, even 3.2 billion. So listen now to Powell. Powell suddenly says, well, you're including another building, the Martin building, the Martin renovation. And Trump's now looking at him in utter disbelief. But who cares? It's all part of the Federal Reserve. This is the main headquarters that we're in now. But the building right next, you guys go to that building, you use that building, yes? So the whole freaking project is over budget by over $1 billion. Like, let's not be stupid now. Roll cut 1B, Mike.
You're including the Martin renovation. You just added
our entire capital.
Yeah, you just added in a third building. Is what that is. That's a third building.
Well, no, but it's a building that's being built.
No, it was built 5 years ago. We finished Martin 5 years ago.
It's part of the overall work.
But it's not new.
So we're going to take a look. We're going to see what's happening.
I mean, this is unbelievable. This is unbelievable. And so Trump then, listen to this now. This to me is the best part. Only in Washington. Only in Washington. You want to know why we're broke as a country? Here it is. Here it is. Okay? Listen now. Trump says to him, so we're now way over budget. Do you expect, any more additional cost overruns? Like, is this it now? Is this it? Listen now to Powell's response. Holy mackerel. Roll cut 1C, a mic.
Do you expect any more additional cost overruns?
Don't expect them. We're ready for them. But we have a little bit of a reserve that we may use. But no, we don't. Expect to be finished in 2027. We're well along, as you can see.
We have a little bit of a reserve. No. We're not expecting any more additional cost overruns. But, hey, there's always more money. You can't make this up. I'm telling you, cannot make this up. This guy is the chair of the Federal Reserve? Now, one more. Listen to this. So a reporter asks him, well, you're a construction guy. That's how you made your fortune. Nobody knows construction more than you, Mr. Trump, Mr. President. If you had a project manager who had these cost overruns, what would you do? Listen to Trump's response. Roll cut 2, a mic.
A real estate developer, what would you do with a project manager who would be over budget?
Generally speaking, what would I do? I'd fire him.
You think? You think? Now, I want you to think about this. They're now going to spend $3.2 billion with a B on something that may be finished in another 2 years. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, you can text the Kuhner Man, 70470. 70470. This is from 603. Jeff, President Trump confronting and exposing Jerome Powell live on camera reminds me so much of when President Trump did the very same thing to the president of South Africa over the white genocide and the murders of all those white farmers. He doesn't leave these dirtbags much wiggle room, but they sure do squirm. And it's really something to see them do it live on camera with nowhere to hide. I love this guy. Yeah, so do I. I was laughing. When I saw this yesterday, I just kept chuckling and laughing. And you're right. It's a great word. Squirm. Because that's what Jerome Powell was doing yesterday. He was squirming. You can see it. He was red-faced. He was embarrassed. He was humiliated. And the question is this, okay? Let's leave aside the interest rates for a second. Let that go, as I like to say. How the hell do you burn through $3.1 billion on a renovation? As I said to Grace last night, if Trump walked in and said, here's what we're going to do, okay? I'm calling in now the bulldozers, Kuhner, I'm calling in Kuhner, and the bulldozers, the wrecking balls. We're just going to demolish the whole thing. Literally, demolish the whole thing, okay? All three buildings, the headquarters and the other two side buildings. I'm going to demolish the whole thing. Here's $1 billion. And you can build from the ground up, from the bottom up. $1 billion. You could build a modern-day Taj Mahal. In fact, we can do the Taj Mahal one-up. Taj Mahal is made of pure marble, ivory white marble. It's considered one of the, it's a mausoleum, one of the greatest building projects in the history of the world. Okay? We could build it with gold. $1 billion. Here, forget we've done Taj Mahal plus. Okay, we can rebrand it the Trump Mahal. And it's the first headquarters or building. It's in pure gold. And we're still putting $2 billion in our pocket. How the hell do you spend $3.1 billion on a freaking renovation project? Where the hell is the money going? And this idiot's like nodding his head like, oh, I didn't see this latest figure. I didn't know. Now you're including the Martin building. Well, yeah, it's part of the overall renovation. I mean, this is how you run a budget? Well, that's the car payment. You're not talking about the house payment. But it's part of the overall family budget. I mean, where's my money going? Well, no, hold on, Jeff. Hey, whoa, that's to pay for the cars. Yeah, but the money's still flying out. So they're robbing us blind. I mean, there's no question. They're robbing us blind. Now, as I said, in a nutshell, this is exactly what's wrong with our federal government. You've got a crook, and that's what Jerome Powell is. He's a crook who lied under oath repeatedly about the mismanagement, the corruption, the cost overruns on a project that never, the original project of $1.9 billion was insane. Let's not quibble. It's a $2 billion project. For renovations? No, let me tell you what happened. This contract was signed under Joe E. And this was what the Bidens did to the whole country. Everybody was taking, everybody was getting a piece of the pie. Everybody was watering their beaks. And money was flying out the door for every project under the sun. And everybody made sure they got a nice slice for themselves. There's no way this project should have been authorized to begin with. Not at $1.9 billion. That is absolutely insane. Again, I want to stress this. They're not building new buildings. It's a simple renovation. And then, on top of the $1.9 billion, we're adding another $1.2, $1.3 billion. It's highway robbery. I'm telling you, they don't even do this in Eastern Europe. Even in Eastern, whoa, hey, take, but not so much. No, hey, the peasants, whoa, they're going to come with their pitchforks. Come on, hey, leave something for the roads and the schools and the hospitals. This is, there's plundering now. Listen now to Trump. He's asked point blank by a reporter, should Jerome Powell be fired? And Trump kind of, he's basically saying, yeah, yeah, but this is not about that right now. Roll cut to A, Mike.
Do you think this issue, Mr. President, gives you cause to do that?
Well, I'm here just really with the chairman. He's showing us around, showing us the work. And so I don't want to get that. I don't want to be personal. I just would like to see it get finished. And in many ways, it's too bad it started. But it did start. And it's been under construction for a long time. It's going to be a real long time because it looks like it's got a long way to go.
Yes, sir.
So,
I mean, it's been going on for years, and it's still going to go on for years. And look, I can tell you this, story after story now is coming out. All right, even the New York Times, and they're one of the biggest backers of Jerome Powell in the world, even the New York Slimes, even the Washington Post, the Compost, both of whom love Jerome Powell because Powell is an enemy of Donald Trump. They love his high interest policy because they want to hurt Trump economically. They don't care if it hurts the country. They just want to hurt Trump. Even they say that these cost overruns are absolutely fantastical, that they're ridiculous, that they're obscene, that we've never seen anything like this. And it's witness after witness after witness that say it's a Wednesday or a Thursday or the middle of the week. It's beautiful weather outside in Washington, and nobody's working. Everybody's getting paid. Literally, everybody's getting paid, but they can't find one worker working. Or that contractors are coming in and it's, they're coming in empty, and they come in and pretend that they're dumping off, let's say, cement or sand or, whatever, construction materials, and they're being charged as if they just did a full load, but there's nothing coming in. And so they're coming in, like it's like, they just keep coming in back and forth, and they're charging 10 times that they've dropped off, I don't know, cement or sand or whatever, construction stuff, but they're only actually bringing in one load. 9 loads are empty. 1 load is full. Just to give you an example of how outrageous this is, or that workers are being paid and there's nobody on the construction site. So even the fake news media is looking at this and saying, whoa, this is way, way out of control. Yeah, I think Trump should fire him. I've had it with this guy. The country's had it with this guy. And I'll tell you this, and I'd love to take calls. Whatever you think of the interest rate policy, which has to me been a disaster, the corruption now, the bribery, the massive cost overruns on this construction renovation, this project, is going to taint Powell's legacy forever. And the fact that he lied under oath and committed perjury about it again and again and again, 617-266-6868 is the number. You can also text us 70470, 70470. Okay, audience, again, today, you're on fire. I'm telling you, you're on fire. I mean, you're always very good. You know that. But today, boy, you're really bringing it. So, just to show you how obscene this is, okay? Again, only in Washington can you get away with something like this. This is Mark on Messenger, and he makes an absolutely brilliant point. Jeff, by the way, sports franchises build state-of-the-art stadiums and arenas for $4 billion. Mark, honest to God, I think you're going too high. Yeah, maybe New York, maybe, I'm not even going to say Boston because I'll get to this in a second, but I don't know, maybe Atlanta, maybe LA. Here, just to give everybody an example, okay? Professional football. The Buffalo Bills are now in the process of, building. Again, no renovation. This is from the foundation up, from the ground floor. They're building a brand new, fully loaded, state-of-the-art stadium that can seat, what is it, Mike? 60,000, you told me, right? 60,000 people. But I mean, it's got everything. I mean, it's got everything you could possibly imagine. $2.2 billion. $2.2 billion. The original cost, $1.4 billion. And now they say this cost overruns. So, and even there, it's 800 million. It's not even 1.2, 1.3 billion. It's 800 million. Anyway, it's going to cost them in the end $2.2 billion. Okay? 2.2. You could get a freaking, a mega stadium for $2.2 billion. This thing is going to cost us $3.2 billion. What the hell is this? Now, people don't know this, okay, about these stadiums. It is a huge issue in every town, every city, every state, because local and state governments always pitch in with taxpayer dollars. It's usually kind of a private-public partnership deal. Sometimes it's mostly public, very little private. But it doesn't matter. It's always a big thing where local and state taxpayers have to foot at least part of the bill for, a big arena or a big stadium, like Buffalo, for example. That had to come out of the local community. They had to pitch in a lot of money for this state-of-the-art stadium. And the problem with that is, and look, I love football. I love sports. You know me. But, a lot of people are like, hey, I don't watch football. I'm not into sports. Why should I have to pay for one of these, mega stadiums? Like, why is this coming out of my pocket? Especially considering the roads are horrible. The schools could use more money. The hospitals, the infrastructure, everything around us. Our police are underfunded. Our fire is underfunded. So we're going to be spending all of these resources, our taxpayer money, for a stadium? We have other priorities. I'm just saying that's why it's always very controversial. There is only one team in the NFL. I'm tempted to say professional sports, hockey, baseball, basketball, football, the big four. I'm not 1,000% sure, so I'm not going to say that, okay? But I suspect it's true. But definitely in the NFL, that I know for sure. There's only one team in the entire National Football League that never asked for a dime of local or state taxpayer dollars, taxpayer money. The New England Patriots and Gillette Stadium, which is right near where I live. And the owner, Bob Kraft, has made a big issue out of this. And that's why, this is what fans don't understand. I don't want to get too sidetracked. But fans are always complaining, oh, he's cheap. Bob Kraft, he should pay more for his players, for payroll, for this. And Bob Kraft always comes back and says, whoa, 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 whoa. Like every other owner in the league, I didn't get billions of dollars in taxpayer money to help build the stadium. We built Gillette Stadium out of our pocket. I mean, they took a loan out from a bank, etc. But the point is, it's all private. It's all privately funded. It's our money. So, no, I'm not going to be paying, top dollar for all these athletes. Why? Because I never got effectively a bailout from the taxpayers. So, to the people of Foxborough in my area, you didn't pay for this stadium. To the people of Massachusetts, you didn't pay for this stadium. I paid for the stadium. Now, that's a big expense. It's a massive expense. So, no, I'm not going to shell out these crazy contracts. The other teams do it because they can afford to do it, because they got helped out by the state government or the local government. We didn't. Okay, so my point is, you can get state-of-the-art stadiums, and Gillette's a beauty. I know it's a tad older, but it's a beauty. I've been to Gillette many, many times. Even if there's not a game, I'm telling you, come down to Patriot Place. Great shops, great restaurants, great family atmosphere. Just look at the stadium. You're like wow. It's like the modern day Roman Colosseum. It's beautiful. And that's what $3 billion will get you. Hell, $2 billion will get you that. So what the hell are they building over there in Washington? And that's the point. And those are renovations. That's how much they're stealing. That's how much they're stealing. Now, just very quick, because I want to go to the phone lines. 617-266-6868 is the number. Again, this is from 603. And excellent point. Excellent point. Jeff, it's all in caps. This is the same exact crap that was going on with the big dig in Boston. We have a lot of listeners from around the country, so that they know the big dig was a big project. What was that, 30 years ago, where they built a tunnel, and the cost overruns were through the roof. It was way over budget, way past time. It was the opposite of on budget and on time. It went on for years. The cost overruns were insane. They milked the taxpayers dry. And honestly, we found out later, shoddy construction on top of it all. I mean, we were robbed. The people of Boston, the people of Massachusetts, you want to talk about a boondoggle. That may have been the mother of all boondoggles. But anyway, not sure if you were in Boston at that time, but this is exactly the same fraud and abuse that we saw with that state government project. And I'm sure the audience has a story or two to share about that boondoggle. You're dead on. You're absolutely dead on. So, listen now to one last clip, and I want to go to phone lines. Listen now to President Trump. He's with, Jerome Powell is right beside him. And the reporter says, well, you're really criticizing Powell nonstop now. Is there anything he can do at this point to get you to back off? Trump says, well, yeah, there's one thing. Roll cut 2B. Mike.
Are there things the chairman can say to you today that would make you back off some of the earlier criticism?
Well, I'd love him to lower interest rates. But other than that, what can I tell you?
Well, I would have said, yeah, and you may be going to jail. Jerome, I hate to break it to you, my friend, but there's a lot of money that's been stolen here. A lot of money is missing, Jerome. A lot of money. 617-266-6868. Okay, let me ask you. A, should President Trump fire Jerome Powell? B, what do you make now? What are they building? Is this a modern-day Taj Mahal? Is it worth $3.1 billion to renovate the Federal Reserve, where they print all of our money and basically drive our country into the ground? Is it worth $3.1 billion? And do you suspect now we are talking about massive corruption, massive overruns, massive abuse of taxpayer money on the scale of the big dig? 617-266-6868. John in Watertown. You're going to kick us off, John. Thanks for holding and welcome.
It's not funny. Trump should know our financial system. He can't fire Jerome Powell because the Federal Reserve is not part of the federal government. A lot of people don't understand that. The Federal Reserve is a private organization, and it is illegal. The Constitution says your government shall create the money and set the value. The Federal Reserve is illegal, and if Trump knew what was going on, he could create our own money, and there'd be no interest. You could borrow money for nothing. That way, there would be no debt. Donald Trump could cancel the debt tomorrow, eliminate it, because all that money goes to the Federal Reserve. When you bought your house, Jeff, how much did you have to pay for interest?
I forget now, but I think it was like 5 3/4 or 5 1/4. Does that? It was a while back. So, and Grace, basically did the negotiations. I was just there to sign. It was basically just above 5%.
The bank got the money to loan to you.
I'm sorry, John, could you repeat that?
Yeah, where do you think the bank got the money to loan to you?
Oh, you're saying it came from the Fed, right?
Yes, and where did the Fed get the money?
You're saying it's what from other banks?
No, they just made it up out of thin air. That's why there's $37 trillion in debt. It's a bunch of baloney. And I want you to write this down. It's very important. And get this off to Trump. I'll go to Washington if I have to and explain the whole financial system. But it's already been done on the computer, free. The Money Masters. And the author is Bill Still. If you didn't write it down, Mike's got it. That'll explain the whole Federal Reserve System should be eliminated. There'd be no debt. And if they did charge you debt, that would go to pay your taxes, and actually you would be free. There's no reason to have any debt. And this is true, 100%.
Well, I mean, you and I are in complete agreement. John, I've never read Bill Still, to be honest with you, but I'm a big supporter of Ron Paul on this. And I think he's been a brilliant critic and really advocate to abolish the Federal Reserve. I think these central banks are dangerous, destructive, out of control, wield way too much power, unelected, unaccountable, and I completely agree with you. I would audit the Fed just to show the incredible corruption, the mind-boggling corruption that they have been involved in for God knows how many decades. So just to the public so they could see how much we've been robbed and pillaged by them. And then I would abolish the Fed. I would get rid of it completely. Audit and then abolish. But I don't want to get too sidetracked. You're completely right, John, but I don't want to get too sidetracked. I want to focus on this particular scandal. But I do appreciate it, John. Thank you very much for that call. But anyway, look, so Powell is holding the economy hostage. See, that's another thing. How do you give so much power to one man? And he, by the way, John is right. The Federal Reserve is technically a federal entity. Okay, it's basically our central bank in a nutshell. It's our central bank. We just call it the Federal Reserve. And we give it way too much power. That he can basically, hijack the economy? And wreak havoc on the housing market? And businesses are waiting to invest, but they're just waiting for interest rates to come down? That one man would wield so much power? I mean, it's ridiculous. And on top of that, seriously, what are they building? The pyramids? The Egyptian pyramids? Like, what are you guys building over there? And you watch, when everything is said and done, it's going to look no better than how it looked in the past. You're going to say, it's classic Washington. Money right down a rat hole. You're going to say, where did the $3.1 billion go? Like, what are we getting for our money? Except Jerome Powell is going to be much richer, and many of the cronies and those who are connected to the project, obviously many of them big donors, they're going to line their pockets. It's theft. What we're watching is theft. 617-266-6868. Agree, disagree. Arthur in Chestnut Hill. Thanks for holding, Arthur, and welcome.
Well, once again, Jeff, if we had an honest media in this country, this would have been exposed a long time ago, and never would have started. And the contractors that did this obviously worked on the big dig in that train line in California. But this is typical of anything that the government does in construction, unless Trump is involved. It's the same operating tactic that they've always used. They start off with a low figure to get the thing started, and then they come up with these big overruns. And you ask, where does the money go? Well, I'll tell you where it doesn't go. It doesn't go to help the veterans. Okay, today, by the way, is Hire a Veteran Day. But as somebody who is a veteran and not somebody who's lost a limb or something or paid the ultimate price, it disgusts me that veterans are still committing suicide at a high rate today. They can't get appointments at the VA. Nothing's really improved, and these people are stealing money. And when they steal money, that's who they steal it from. They steal it from people that the government should be helping instead of the people who are in government helping themselves. This is what this country has become, Jeff. Okay, and this guy's got no shame. You can look at his expressions, the smugness. This guy could care less about a legacy, and he was appointed by Obama, of course, and they shouldn't have an appointment that's 10, 12 years to have that kind of power and have an appointment that you can't do anything about, because we're supposed to have a government with oversight so things like this doesn't happen, but they want it to happen, and he's part of the Democrat and the crime family. Nothing's going to happen to him. Nothing happens to anybody. Nobody goes to jail. He's part of the Obama, Biden, the most corrupt, traitorous people who have ever been in this country, and they're still walking around laughing at us, and it disgusts me. It disgusts me that the decent people in this country can't get anything that they're entitled to, and these people are doing what they're doing. To look at that guy, it disgusts me to look at him because he's an arrogant SOB, and look, and you can see when they're walking around. Well, there's nobody even working. It's like you watch highway projects around Massachusetts. You see all this construction, then you drive by. There's nobody working. But like you said, believe me, that they're getting paid, though, aren't they?
That is, by the way, Arthur, I gotta say, that is so true. Like in my neck of the woods, the roads are closed. They've got orange cones everywhere, signs, construction. It's a real inconvenience when it comes to traffic. And you look around, you're like, where's the construction? Who's constructing? Where are the workers? They're nowhere to be found. It's incredible. And then the other thing, Arthur, and I got to say this is unique. Maybe they do it in New York or New Jersey, so I don't want to say, only Massachusetts, but let's put it this way. It's close to uniquely Massachusetts. They're doing construction they're not doing construction, meaning there's signs everywhere, everything's closed, and I'm sure they're all getting paid, but they're not, you don't see anybody working. But then they put a couple of cops on detail. That's the part that gets me all the time. So on the, road closed, right there is a cop, and then way down the road is the other cop. And you could actually see them. They're outside. They're taking in the sun. They got their sunglasses on, maybe a little bit with the traffic. They're like, come on, with their hands. Come on, move on. And I'm like, why do you need a police detail? Like, why? You're not even protecting the workers. By the way, who's going to attack the workers? But the workers aren't working. The workers aren't there. So not only are the construction workers in on it, the cops are in on it. So they're making extra, time and a half, double time, overtime. It's a racket from A to Z. Arthur, am I wrong? Have you seen the cops everywhere when they do a construction project? Not only are they not working, the police are there, or they're in their vehicles air conditioned, and just you just see the lights going on, the police lights, and they're just sitting in their cars doing detail over nothing. What say you, Arthur?
Of them, 5 guys are standing around the pole talking while one guy's still working. and then there's the cops who were sitting in their cars and just in an air-conditioned car, and today when things cost so much and things are so bad economically for a lot, especially in this state, but construction has been one of the biggest sources of corruption and kickbacks that has ever existed for the worst work. Every time you see a road repaved, it's got to be repaved 2 years later. But you know what? We do it to ourselves. I mean, we elect the people that get away with doing this sort of thing. This is why I'm very saddened by the biggest betrayal that I've ever seen one guy do to another, what Donald Trump did to Elon Musk. Elon Musk is one of the greatest people in the history of this country. What he sacrificed, what he's given to this country, and what he did for Trump. He never said no to one thing that Trump asked him to do, and sacrificed hundreds of billions of dollars, okay, and asked for nothing in return.
No, and Arthur, and Doge, he really delivered on Doge. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, this is from Larry on Messenger. Jeff, Jerome Powell is to the economy as Anthony Fauci was to health. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. And then Larry goes on to say, another power-tripping megalomaniac. Well, he's doing tremendous damage. Powell is to the economy, and he knows it. He knows it. And he doesn't care. But on top of it all, he's a crook. And that's why I loved it that Trump basically called him out yesterday. And again, to me, this is more of a video than an audio cut, because just the audio just doesn't quite do justice. To see Trump, that annoyed look on his face, in his suit and the hard hat. And then you got Powell, who looks like a little snake in the grass, right beside him. And he's like, yeah, we just found out it's not, it went from 1.9 billion to 2.7 billion. Now, apparently, your people are telling us 3.1, 3.2 billion. And Powell's like just shaking his head, like vehemently, like Trump's lying. And Trump has this annoyed look on his face. And you can almost read his face, like, you crook, you little shyster, and he's like, no, I didn't hear about this, no. And then he's just so annoyed, and he pulls the letter out of his jacket. And Tim Scott's like, he can't believe it himself. And Tim Scott's like, yeah, I'm on the committee I chair the committee. That's what your people just told us. You don't even know what your own people are saying? And then he gives him the letter. And Trump points, look, it comes from your office. And then he's like, well, no, that's the Martin building. You're adding another building. And Trump's like, that's part of the overall renovation project. What are you talking to me about? It's unbelievable. It's just unbelievable. They're shameless, utterly shameless. 617-266-6868. Okay, very quick. Mark on Messenger came back. I did not know this. Again, this audience always teaches me things. Always. About the Massachusetts police, the details, on these construction sites where nobody's working, but they're still there in their air-conditioned cars. The police are sitting back, relaxing. Time and a half, double time, the whole thing. Jeff, listen to this. I did not know this. Jeff, in Massachusetts, the police details don't even have to be from the city that they're doing the work in. This is incredible. They pull details from all over the state of Massachusetts. In other words, I had a friend of mine who is a police officer in one city, but he did a police detail in another city. I gotta tell you, man. The way they can take money out of our pockets. Seriously. The creative ways they can pad their bank accounts. So I just quickly, messaged him back. I go, incredible. It really is a hackorama. And then he writes back, no, it's more like a racket to me, Jeff. Laugh out loud. What a racket. Honest to God, what a racket. Lou in Rhode Island. Thanks for holding, Lou, and welcome.
Yeah, how are you doing, Jeff? This is actually an interesting topic because it goes to the heart of the Democratic Party. Now, yesterday we were talking about, Hillary. She was totally debilitated in 2016, and they were trying to get her elected anyway, right? And that's why they had and then 2020 they managed to sneak in Biden, who was totally debilitated and is suffering from dementia, because the Democratic Party is a business. All they care about is whose pockets you can line, whose votes you can buy, and what agenda they can pursue to destabilize the country and maintain their power. That's it. And this is why they go and get into all these schemes, and they put the money. For example, you look at that infrastructure bill. For example, it was $1 trillion infrastructure bill. How much money went to real infrastructure? I'm talking about roads, bridges, and airports. Real infrastructure. 15%, $150 billion out of $1 trillion bill. The rest went to all these green projects and all this other crap. I mean, this is the way the Democratic Party operates. Nobody puts them under a microscope except for Trump and Doge. That's the only time I think in history that I remember that anybody has started to put this stuff under a microscope and say, look what you're doing. And then they're building all these buildings, and nobody was even going to work in those buildings anyway, remember? They
Yes.
had empty buildings all over the place. They've got empty buildings all over the country. Why can't they just move some operations to some of the empty buildings all over the country or sell them? And when it comes to the interest rates, the thing I know about interest rates, I think I got this from Milton Friedman, you've got to have the right rate of interest to promote expansion. And that's, I think, what Trump is getting to, because he wants to expand the economy. And this is why he's trying to bring all these businesses in. And if you don't have the right rate to expand the economy, you're going to have more of a recession. So what he wants to do is what's natural, is bring the rates down enough to promote all the expansion that's going on. And in the housing market, I don't know. I have some questions about the housing market, too. I mean, interest rates are one thing, but I've always noticed whenever they lower the interest rates, the prices go up. And there's a lot of other factors involved in housing, such as regulation, green mandates, and all kinds of other crap that are keeping people from even building affordable housing or even selling their housing. I mean, or even they have to have panels on the thing and all this kind of stuff. I mean, regulation is also important too. And I know in the Northeast, I mean, this is not a place that a lot of people are going to want to move anymore. If you got these guys like Mamdani in there in New York and Hochul and the governors in all these states and all these liberal legislatures, nobody want to move there anyway. So I mean, a lot of the housing is going to be going to like red states and Florida and all and places like that. I mean, they're moving out of California. California, they can't manage their housing either out there too. It's going up and up and up, and it's all due to the Democratic Party with their regulations, their mandates, and all this other kind of stuff too. So it's not only the interest.
Oh, you're right. No, you're right. No, Joe. I mean, as Lou, forgive me, Lou, as usual. I mean, excellent points. You're completely right, but it's not the silver bullet. No one's saying that, but. Lou, really, you talk to anybody and everybody in the housing market, the construction business, when it comes to homes, and they go, interest rates are just way too high. That's the first thing out of their mouth. Okay, listen to this, all of you. Wow. This is from a listener on Messenger. I'm just going to say his name is Joe. I'm not going to say anything more. And here's what he writes about this massive boondoggle in Washington, D.C., regarding the renovation for the Federal Reserve headquarters and the several buildings that the Federal Reserve is located in. We're looking at billions of dollars now in cost overruns, massive corruption, embezzlement, and by the way, Jerome Powell lying under oath. So he's in big trouble. And I think deep down he may know he's in big trouble. So this is what Joe writes. Jeff, I work in Massachusetts for a very rich and prestigious university. I'm a mechanic for a new building. Maybe the building is about 3-4 years old. I spend so much time watching these buildings that get built for billions of dollars. And when they officially open, it is years of nothing but problems and issues. Leaks everywhere. All kinds of stuff breaking down, falling apart within 2 years or less. They are built so cheap that they end up spending twice as much to repair it in the first few years than they did to originally build it. And on top of it, they will put 2 classrooms on the first floor which are practically never used. But because they did this, the whole building is a write-off because it's considered a teaching/classroom building. The rest of the building is used for research. Listen to this racket. The rest of the building is used for research for medical companies or technology advancements or a dorm, and then they can charge the tenants and students money that is outrageous, like $2,500 for a studio apartment or even $3,500 a month for a single bedroom apartment. Oh my God. It's all a joke. And that's only a one building here in Massachusetts. Imagine the fraud that on the scale that you're talking about in Washington with the Federal Reserve. It is a racket all the way around. And this is what Trump understands, as he used to have to pay these fools. He knows how to fix this. Let's pray he does. And by the way, Jeff, no one ever mentions this, but the mob, the mafia, yeah, they're into this as well. So, and that's the thing. Trump had to deal with them all the time in New York and in New Jersey, and they're also very, very prevalent. They've got to get their cut and their slice of the pie. But no, it's shoddy construction where, again, they're stealing money, and then the building has to be fixed or renovated within a couple of years after they spent billions to build it. And then they just, designate a first floor and say, yeah, a couple of classrooms will be there. The classrooms are never used. But then the whole thing becomes a massive tax write-off. Then they rent out the office space to these big medical or tech companies. So they're now they're really bringing in the cash. And then they're so freaking greedy, they will use other rooms and turn them into dorms or apartments. And then say, sure, charge, whatever, $2,500 for a studio or $3,000 for a studio or $3,500 for a small bedroom apartment. Blank you. And the cash just keeps pouring in. That's what our taxpayer money is funding. And that's a university. That's supposed to be an institution of quote unquote higher learning. Like, you're there to educate the kids, the future generation. And instead, it's one big boondoggle off of our backs. 617-266-6868. Mark in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Mark, and welcome.
Hey, good morning, buddy. Happy
Mark,
Friday.
how are you, my friend?
I'm great, man. Great. Hey, I'm with you, Jeff. 3 words: audit the Fed. Let's start with this project. Let's see where the money's really going. The problem is, I see, Jeff, Congress can't be in charge of this. Every single Democrat will oppose it, not because they don't think they're wasting money, but because they just hate Trump and they don't want him to ever get any kind of win in this. So this has to be a team of forensic accountants needs to go in, rip open the books, and take a long, hard look at what the Fed is really doing. Our founding fathers, Jeff, the people that wrote the Constitution, didn't want a central bank because they knew then that a government can't and won't control its own spending. They knew then, Jeff, 200 plus years ago, they knew that a government that had its own bank would spend and have no accountability. And that's exactly what we've ended up with. We've got a centralized bank that's not under anyone's control other than a few unelected bureaucrats. And they've just spent money and they've doled it out. And no one knows where this money goes, Jeff. We have no way to open up their books and take a long, hard look at it. And I think if we start with this project and we take a really close look at what they've been doing, find out why they're spending so much more than they should have, that would give grounds, Jeff, to really crack open their books and look at everything.
Oh, I agree. I really agree. And, just, by the way, this is what people in Washington are saying. I'm talking about just, ordinary civilians, people who walk the streets. They're all saying, why did you renovate it to begin with? Like, there was nothing wrong with the building. It was a beautiful building. It was a nice building. It wasn't falling apart. It wasn't dilapidated. Far from it. You go in, it's nice. I mean, it may be a tad old. I mean, just, if you're going to nitpick, whatever. It doesn't have the latest windows. It doesn't have the latest modern architecture. But a lot of it, just to show you how obscene this is, Mark, a lot of the original Fed building that they were, that they're renovating now had beautiful marble all over it. It's a beautiful building. They're tearing down the marble. Who tears down marble? To replace it, they say, with newer and even better marble and even more expensive marble. So even the residents who walk by or say, but it was a beautiful building. You don't even need to touch it. I mean, I guess if you want to spend $1 million here or $1 million there to update the air conditioning system or, whatever. So, A, this was under Biden. Why did you authorize the project to begin with? And number two, how the hell did we get to $3.2 billion? What are you guys doing in there? Mark, what's your suspicion? Is Powell stealing money?
I don't know if it's so much stealing as it's directing it to things maybe that shouldn't be going to. You could have in there, $500 million for the upgrades of, floors 6 through 10, but there's only nine floors, So you've got, this extra money that we really don't know where it's going. That's like when they stroke these massive checks to go to, Ukraine. Do we really know where that money's going?
Great point. Great point. Mark, have a great weekend. Okay, just super quick. If Jerome Powell would slash interest rates, even up to a full percentage point. I know you don't, normally it's done, 0.25% or 0.5%, but say you just shaved off even 0.5%. But say, you do half and then the next, next time you do another half. Okay. Just 1 full percentage point. Everybody that I know, from my wonderful wife who's in real estate to many others, say, it will boom. The market will boom. I'm not saying it fixes everything. Yes, there are many reasons why homes are so expensive, way too expensive. Regulations, green energy mandates, we could go on and on. Illegal immigration is driving up rents in particular. Too many people, too much congestion. There's many reasons. But a rate cut or several rate cuts and the housing market will skyrocket. It will boom. Construction will boom. People will start buying. They'll start selling. They'll start building. It'll unlock it. It'll unfreeze the housing market. And that's going to really help propel the economy. And so that's, to me, of all of the crimes that Jerome Powell is committing. Look, I can't stand crooks. Crooks belong in jail. To me, this is a criminal enterprise. It's outrageous. 1.9 billion was outrageous. The original contract was outrageous. Remember, you build a stadium for $2 billion. State-of-the-art NFL football stadium. A mega stadium with all the fixings. It's fully loaded. $2 billion. Brand new. Massive parking lot. It's got everything. Okay? Shops, restaurants. It's got everything. Everything you could imagine for $2 billion. You're going to renovate 3 buildings in Washington, D.C. that were beautiful buildings? Again, I don't want to go on about the marble. But the Fed headquarters, marble everywhere. It was beautiful Italian marble. It's gorgeous. And you're destroying it, tearing it apart? For what? So these are renovations. You're not even building something new. So the original contract to me was obscene. But now we're talking about another, 1.2, $1.3 billion? Come on. This is Eastern European level obscenity, stealing, theft. It's disgusting. And he lied about it under oath. He lied again and again and again. Powell did. So please, I'm not minimizing the scandal. I think it's a massive scandal. But it goes to the heart of the Federal Reserve. It's a private institution. It is unelected. It is unaccountable. And it has access to it controls the entire money supply of the United States and by extension the world. Because the world essentially is on the dollar. So we're talking about trillions and trillions, and it literally can control and create, if it wants to, printing money, trillions of dollars. And I go back to Mark's point, which I thought was a brilliant point. All of that money flowing behind the scenes to individuals, to other banks, to institutions, to businesses, to the government, to you name it. Look at the massive temptation. I mean, who can resist dipping into, you're looking at trillions flowing right in front of you. Who doesn't want a piece of that? And look, Craig on Messenger, I thought made a great point. He messaged me over the break, said, Jeff, the money is being siphoned off and funneled. The $3.1 billion, or 3.2 now, the $3.2 billion. Why? Because that's how Biden always operated. Remember, the contract was under Biden, the Federal Reserve renovation contract. What did the Bidens ever do that didn't come back to benefit them and go in their pocket? And it's always using a separate entity, a third person. That's how they do it. So always, send it to this place and then something in a kickback. It's always being funneled somewhere. And then some of it, Shazam, but what a coincidence. It ends up in either his pocket or Hunter's pocket or one of Joe's brother's pocket or his grandkids or somebody somewhere gets money. And that's why I think Mark is right. You got to crack open the books. We want to see the $3.2 billion. Where did all of this money go? And then say, you know what? The whole Federal Reserve System stinks. Their headquarters is corrupt. If their headquarters is corrupt, then I want to see the actual books of the entire Federal Reserve and then start auditing. And that's what Ron Paul has been saying for decades. He goes, I'm just asking for a simple audit. Just a simple audit, like the money to Ukraine. That was Rand Paul, his son. All I want is tell me where is the money going. That's it. That's it. That's it. That's it. That's all I want. And they went berserk because they know Zelensky's stealing. By the way, I don't want to get too off topic. Have you seen the big stories now about Zelensky? Were we proven prophetic and right or what? Zelensky, in a nutshell, has now fired the top anti-corruption officials in his country. And he has deliberately defanged, gutted all of the anti-corruption agencies because they're now saying he's stealing, his government is stealing, and that literally billions and billions and billions in American money, EU money, and EU and American weapons are unaccounted for. And so he did a Saturday night massacre. He just fired everybody in these anti-corruption agencies. And now on the streets of Ukraine, not just the capital, but in cities all over the country. And remember, the Russians are hammering them on the Eastern Front. So in the middle of a war where the Russians have now launched a massive summer offensive that the Ukrainians now are desperately trying to fight off, they are protesting on the freaking streets by the thousands upon thousands upon thousands, saying Zelensky is a crook. Now you know why they didn't want the money to be audited. Because he was stealing, like we said from the beginning. It was so obvious. Now his own people are rising up against him. Now, we're just talking, and I'm not diminishing it. We're talking, 150, 200, whatever, 175, 200 billion that we sent to Ukraine, which is a lot. But the Federal Reserve, it's not 200 billion. It's not even 2 trillion. It's $20 trillion. So if they were looting over 200 billion, what the hell do you think has been going on for decades when we're literally talking about tens and tens of trillions of dollars that go through the Federal Reserve? Audit the whole damn thing. The whole damn thing. 617-266-6868. Agree, disagree. Victor in Georgetown. Thanks for holding, Victor, and well appreciate it.
I always enjoy your show. By the way, Jerome Powell is the first Fed, president that wasn't an economist. He's a lawyer. First one. So keep that in mind.
Interesting.
But to my bigger point, I consider myself a real estate expert, definitely in the top 1% of independent investors. Closed over $600 million in real estate deals in my career.
Really?
And I want to tell you...
So sorry, Victor. So I promise I'll give you all the time in the world. $600 million worth of deals? Really?
I had the pleasure of closing a deal with Donald Trump at the Trump Towers. So I'm a big fan of Donald Trump.
Wow.
And
Victor, mazel tov, as the Jews would say. Congratulations.
Hey, I've just been blessed, and I'm a decorated combat Marine. So
Wow.
I've seen both sides of the spectrum in life. I would venture to say, but I'm going to explain this, Jeff, so that even the Democrat, Marxist, Communist college graduates can understand it. Okay, here we go. If 100 men graduated from college, they go down to the diamond store because they just proposed. They're about to propose to their girlfriend. They get into the diamond store, and there's only 3 diamonds available. Well, the store owner is thrilled. He's got 100 people competing for his 3 diamonds. And they're just, arguing with each other, and the price of those diamonds are going up. One of them sneaks off and finds a low interest rate so he can get a loan. And he goes and he bids more for the diamonds than the other guys. So the interest rate, the lower interest rate, simply made the diamonds more expensive because there's a supply issue with the diamonds. If there were 100 diamonds, it would be a fair market and there would be an ebb and flow. But because there's such a shortage of diamonds, they pay through the roof. Now, what's that got to do with real estate? It's the same thing. You got a supply problem with housing. There's not enough housing. I've got people up here paying over $2,000 a month to live in a damn trailer in a trailer park. It's just stunningly unfortunate and just unforgivable because Biden let the interest rate stay so low for so long. Everyone outbid each other in the marketplace and drove those prices to stratospheric, unsustainable prices. So what's going to happen, Jeff? I'm old enough to have seen a few cycles in the real estate market, and we're going to have a downturn. How do I know that? Because normally you have 2 million people buying entry-level housing. It's down to 1 million now.
Wow. So you're saying prices have to come down. There's no question, correct?
Coming down, either by design or by market pressures.
Yeah, supply and demand. No, I hear you. Oh, that's a great point. Victor, great call. Great call. Thank you so much for that call, Victor. So I agree with Victor. I think he's right. Prices are going to come down. It's inevitable. The market will force the prices to go down. And then you add lowering interest rates, which is just going to give people an incentive to go out and take a loan and buy a house. yeah, I mean, this thing is going to really start to pop. So look, Jerome Powell is literally the last piece in the puzzle. It's the last hurdle in Trump before we get to Trump's golden age. You get rid of Jerome Powell, or if he starts to at least come to his senses and start cutting interest rates, the Trump economic golden age is here. It is going to spark a boom like we have rarely ever seen. 617-266-6868. Okay, I promise I'm going to take more of your calls, but hey, it's 8 o'clock. Well, actually just a little bit past 8-ish. Friday. You know what that means. Kuhner's call log, caller of the week.
It's time for Kuhner's Call Log, where we showcase our favorite caller from the week.
I can hear you. Can you hear me? Thanks for holding, Vince.
I can't stand the smugness of this Barack Hussein. And I think by the end of this whole thing, we will find out for sure that he was proven to be the biggest criminal fraud in U.S. history, as you know. So he's got to take it to its full conclusion now. And he must clean out the whole criminal enterprise. You can't leave any pieces of the snake left over because it's only going to reconstitute and make the counterattack much, much greater than we've ever seen. And at this point, Trump is 80 years old. He got shot. He really has nothing to lose. So when you say they threaten his family and all that stuff, really? I think he's threatened on a daily basis. Trump is going to be an iconic historic figure. He's got to take this to its ultimate conclusion. And it reminds me basically of the Punic Wars. The Romans eventually had to destroy Carthage completely. Otherwise, it was back and forth and back and forth. And if Trump doesn't do anything now, it's going to lead to a civil war later. So we're going to have to break a few eggs at this moment to save the country. And Trump is doing it exactly right. He's doing it like a contractor does a building. He's built the foundations. I think he's cleaning out the deep state within because that's what he learned from his first term. His first term, he had the cancer within, and every time he tried to do something, the snakes kept biting him. So I think he's in the process of eliminating all the snakes within, and now he's ready to go to war.
And next week, it could be you on Kuhner's Call Log.
Please, don't be a stranger. Call again. Congratulations, Vince. Dynamite call. Dynamite week of callers. I have to tell you. In all the years I've been on the air, you know this audience, you always bring it. But this week may have been maybe the or one of the best weeks in terms of the quality of the callers. And I got to tell you, I didn't want to do another show because I want to give this, I don't want to keep beating a dead horse, but also there were really no more dramatic developments in the Russiagate scandal that is growing and growing now like a cancer on the deep state and on Obama and on his cronies. But after yesterday, where again now Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton are going to be subpoenaed over what they did in Epstein Island, and James Comey, he's also going to be subpoenaed. And you've also got now even Merrick Garland is going to be subpoenaed. Alberto Gonzales, who was Trump's attorney general, he's going to be subpoenaed. So this, you can tell, Trump is getting ready now for war. And Mike Johnson came out again yesterday and saying, we are going to get to the bottom of everything that happened. And no, we are not going to sweep this under the rug. So subpoenas are going to be issued and Obama is going to be put under oath. So you can tell now they're getting ready for war. War is coming, and it's a war that we're going to win, God willing. 617-266-6868. Okay, super quick reset. President Trump yesterday visited the headquarters of the Federal Reserve in Washington, D.C., where they have been undergoing renovations now for a while. And to the shock and horror of really everybody, now we have found out that it's the cost overruns are over $1 billion on top of the original $1.9 billion contract. And again, that is just for revamping the headquarters, just renovations. We're looking at $3.2 billion. Billions of dollars are unaccounted for. Powell cannot explain what has happened to the money. And now many people are openly asking, is he a crook? Have they siphoned off money? Has it been misappropriated, stolen, embezzled? More questions are being asked. And now they're saying without a shadow of a doubt, this scandal is now a stain on Jerome Powell, and it's not going anywhere. And on top of all this, that clown still refuses to lower interest rates. 617-266-6868 is the number. Tom in the great state of Wisconsin. Thanks for holding, Tom, and welcome.
Hi, Jeff.
Hi, Tom.
Powell is not going to lower interest rates. He is a Democrat soldier, deep stater, Trump hater. And President Trump is tethered by his cord from having his economy skyrocket, where President Trump's approval rating goes way above 60%. If President Trump's approval rating goes above 60%, that gives him political momentum to prosecute all of the Russiagate crooks in a military tribunal. Without President Trump's skyrocketing approval into the high 60s, he can't do that. And he's stuck with prosecuting the Russia criminals in a civilian court where they get let off by a Democrat jury. So there's a lot tied to the Powell tethering Trump's economy than just the economy. There's political forces at work here that are telling Powell, don't you dare lower the interest rates even 0.5%. It's the last straw that will break the Democrats' back. The problem with firing Powell is that the Supreme Court this last May ruled that the Federal Reserve chairman is not under the umbrella of President Trump necessarily to be fired. And the word necessarily is important because the wasting of $3 billion on a new palace for the Federal Reserve, which everyone hates, just like they hate the IRS, could be the linchpin that enables President Trump to fire this jerk. So that is pretty much, in a nutshell, my comments.
Tom, brilliant. I'm telling you, absolutely. I think you hit the nail right on the head. Absolutely nailed right on the head. And you know, Tom, I can only add to what you're saying. Look, I think you're right. In fact, I know you're right. You lower interest rates, even 0.5 percentage point, okay? But let's just be super safe. 2 rate cuts, bang, bang, it goes down a percentage point. This is an economy for the ages. The Trump economy is going to absolutely skyrocket. He becomes politically invincible going into the midterms. You're right. His approval rating goes right over, 60, 65%. He's going to win the midterms. It's going to be a massive sweep, and it gives him all then the political capital, the political cover that he needs to go to war with the deep state. Because the American people will say, hey, he's giving us peace, prosperity. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, very quick, because I want to go to the blazing phone lines. 617-266-6868 if you want to be part of the show. Great calls, by the way. And the previous caller, I thought, made an excellent point, Tom in Wisconsin, that, the Supreme Court has ruled that technically the Federal Reserve and the Fed chair doesn't necessarily fall under the authority or responsibility or purview of the president. Now, I just sit back for a second. How is this that you can have a democratically elected president who then appoints his cabinet, his financial team, and he runs on a specific economic agenda? In Trump's case, low taxes, tariffs, low regulations, low interest rates, We know what he wants to do: increase wages for middle working class Americans, unleash business creation, investment, economic growth, private sector. He wants the private sector to now drive this economy into the 21st century and really create, as he put it, an economic golden age. So he's got all of these policies that he explicitly campaigned on, and that the voters gave him a full mandate to implement. And it can be stopped by one man? Unelected? Some bureaucrat? Who, by the way, I didn't know this. Normally, I thought it was almost like a prerequisite for the job. Get somebody who's a qualified, trained, educated economist, right? Somebody who knows the economy, both macro and micro. No, not this guy. Apparently this guy's a lawyer. Tay-ay-ay. So one unelected, unaccountable bureaucrat can undermine a president's entire economic agenda that he was elected to enact? It's insane. It's insane. Now, people are going to say, I know what, for example, like the show after this one, they do a lot of finance. They're going to say, I know what the rebuttal would be. The rebuttal would be, well, no, whoa. The Federal Reserve is essentially a central bank. The head of every central bank is independent. They have to be independent. They can't be susceptible to political pressure. Yes. Okay. I agree. But I don't want to get too into the financial weeds here, but I know these two countries very well, Canada and England. They both have a central bank of Canada, Central Bank of England. And they both have what's called the governor of the bank, which is their equivalent of the Fed chair. But if you look at the history of Canada to this day, history of England to this day, the heads of their central banks always work closely with the government in power. In other words, their role is, how do I say this? Like, okay, we're there as a check, as a potential break, if the government really enacts destructive policies. If these guys are going to give us 15, 20, 25% inflation, I'm just, making up something. In other words, these guys are just driving the economy into the ground. Well, then I'm sorry, we're going to have to raise interest rates to try to lower inflation because you guys are going to wipe out the middle class. So the governor of these banks, okay, their version of the Fed chair, is not there to sabotage the government. They're not there to stop or block the government's economic agenda. They're there almost like, well, look, if they really make serious mistakes and it's something that could jeopardize the economic stability of the country, yeah, we're going to have to take certain measures. But that's as a backstop, as a last resort, not as a first resort. Not as hey, we don't care what you guys want. We don't care what you were elected. We're going to do what we're going to do. That's what Powell is basically saying. They don't operate like that. For example, I can tell you this. The head of the Bank of Canada meets with the government regularly, meets with the Prime Minister, meets with the Finance Minister, their version of the Secretary of the Treasury, meets with them. And in England, the same thing. In other words, are we on the same page? Let's try to coordinate. So we have someone now who's a saboteur. That's what Jerome Powell is. He's a deep state economic saboteur. Now, I could run down country after country. I use Switzerland as an example. Do you know that Switzerland has a 0.25% interest rate? Literally 0.25%. 0.25%. And their inflation is just slightly lower than ours. So what I'm saying is, look at what other countries around the world are doing. He's keeping these rates artificially high. And he's using the tariffs as an excuse. That's the only thing left he has. Well, these tariffs, we still haven't factored in if they're going to be increasing prices, i.e. cause inflation. Well, we've had them now for 4 months, 5 months? Trump, by the way, announced a huge deal with Japan yesterday. Massive deal with Japan. Something that people thought couldn't be accomplished. Indonesia, Vietnam, they're all falling into place. And these are deals that finally open up all of their markets to our goods while they're accepting a tariff on their goods. So we're going to level the trade field once and for all. So, no, everything they predicted, and this is what Powell predicted, this is what Wall Street predicted, this is what the media predicted, that Trump unleashing these tariffs would spark a catastrophe on Wall Street. That you would see a stock market collapse. Didn't happen. Stock market all-time high. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, let me ask all of you. It is the Kuhner Country poll question of the day, sponsored by Mario's. Mario's quality roofing, siding, and windows. Should President Trump fire Fed Chair Jerome Powell if interest rates are not lowered? Let me ask all of you again. Should President Trump fire Fed Chair Jerome Powell if interest rates are not lowered? Hell, I would say fire him now. Never mind wait another month or two until his next decision on whether to lower rates. But that's me. I'm an A on this. A, yes. B, no. I'm not just a yes. I'm a hell yes. I'm A on this all the way, baby. But that's me. I want to hear from you. You can vote on our webpage, wrko.com/Kuhner, wrko.com/Kuhner, Kuhn as in National ER. And as always, and I paid tribute to Hulk Hogan yesterday on X, to me, great American. I am so sorry that he passed away way too early, only 71 years old. But anyway, let that go. So I was active again on X. You can vote on X, my handle there, all one word, at the Kuhner Report, Kuhn as in National ER, at the Kuhner Report. To fire or not to fire? That is the question. 617-266-6868. Lines are loaded. Okay, who do you want me to go to next, Mike? Jeff in Tewksbury. Thanks for holding, Jeff, and welcome.
Hey, good morning, Jeff. How you doing?
Good. How are you, Jeff?
Very, very good. So, to answer your question of the day, the Federal Reserve needs to be imploded. It does not belong to we the people. So, just a quick history lesson. The Federal Reserve, the central bank, and the IRS are all private entities. Okay, now I'm going to throw this out here. It may sound conspiracy, but the New World Order. Your world leaders, when you control, what's the old saying? When you control the money, you control the people, correct?
Yes.
So you got to go back to 1871, the Organic Act. And that's when the United States, unbeknownst to most people, don't know that America became a corporation. Our Constitution, in upper and lower case, used to state that the Constitution for America, not of America. And after the Act of 1871, it became the Constitution of America in all capital letters. Now, in and then you had Abraham Lincoln, who was assassinated, who brought back the greenback dollar. Now, there was a lot of bankers that didn't want the central banking system. All right, real quick, they got put on the Titanic. Those bankers that were against the central banking system were on the Titanic. It just so happens J.P. Morgan stepped off that ship the day of it set sail. Now you get to 1933, the Federal Reserve Act. When we were all celebrating Christmas Eve with our families, a third of Congress voted on the Federal Reserve Act. Now we have the Federal Reserve. Okay? And when you go back to that timeline, gold to silver was 1-12. Now, gold to silver is 1-93. Look at the value of the dollar. It doesn't even have the value of the paper that it's on. So you have to look at the 40,000-foot overview. What most people don't understand is an operation to completely take down the Federal Reserve and the IRS. And Trump is hinting this all along the way, to include having his little visit to, the Federal Reserve and how the budget is over budget for renovations. That's just to get us talking. That's just to get the mind control released that most people are under, mass psychosis. Okay, we don't really understand the full picture that everything is going on here. And yes, Jeff, he is going to take us into the golden age. And how he's going to do that is by systematically destroying the Federal Reserve, eliminating the IRS and the central banking system, and he's going to introduce a quantum financial system, okay? And it's going to be gold-backed, and silver is going to skyrocket, so anybody out there get as much silver as you can purchase. But anyways, let all that go. My point is the conversation that we have is just to get people to start opening up their eyes, have a conversation, but everybody needs to start digging deep. And not for nothing, people think the IRS collects money and then we're creating highways. Ronald Reagan said it himself. There's not a single cent that the IRS collects that goes to anything that we do on our highways. Doesn't even pay for the ink that goes on our documents. Okay, the IRS is headquartered in Puerto Rico. Your tax dollars goes to Puerto Rico. It gets dumped into the International Monetary Fund. And, I don't want to say it, but I'm going to say it anyways. It goes to the Vatican. It goes to the City of London. Okay? That's where your money is going. And the IRS is a voluntary system. And when you get a 1040 as an employee, that's a contract to the IRS. Now you are responsible to pay those taxes. But it's a voluntary system. They're not teaching it. Most people, and not for nothing.
Jeff. I mean, you've put a lot on the table. I completely disagree with you at the last part. Your first part I agree with. The second part I don't. The money is not going to the Vatican. I can guarantee you that. The Vatican is practically broke because of the sex abuse scandal, and it's not going to London. There's foreign aid, but it's not being dumped in some account in London. So that I think is off base, and I disagree with you. Your first point, or the first half of your point, I thought was dead on. The Federal Reserve, like every central banking system, is the linchpin of the New World Order. You're completely right. It was imposed on the American people against the will of the American people, like a bunch of thieves in the dead of night. There's no question. There's no question. And because a lot of people don't understand, it's not even really that complicated, but they use a lot of financial speak and jargon and terms. And so people feel, well, I don't understand it. And if I don't understand it, let me not focus on it. They do that on purpose to intimidate people not to look. I agree with you. Trump now wants to rein in the Federal Reserve. I think there's no question. He clearly sees how destructive it is, how it works, not just against him as a president, but against the interests of the American people. And he knows that a corruption scandal like this opens people's eyes to how evil and abusive and corrupt the Federal Reserve is. 617-266-6868 is the number. Steve in Bridgewater. Thanks for holding, Steve, and welcome.
Hey, Jeff, how you doing today?
This idiot. He changes his voice. No, I know. Mike, let's put him back on, just for the hell of it. Oh, we dropped him. That's okay. Mike just dropped him. But, no, really, this whole KKK, I'm holding a KKK meeting in Foxborough. Why don't you show up? I mean, he's such an idiot, honestly. Mike, how many years has he been doing this? Like, yeah, ever since you've been here. Believe me, you went on way before you came on, Mike. I mean, years and years and years. Like, just, buddy, get a life. Get a job, man. Seriously, what a loser. 617-266. And by the way, Mike, how long did he wait? Like, we've got serious callers who want to call in, but, like, this guy will wait just to do his stupid KKK routine. 617-266. Definitely Biden supporter. Yeah. Well, you kind of respect it, Mike? Oh, he's got dedication. At least that, the dedication. Yeah, I guess. 6-1. I bet he's Oh, that's Bill in Sudbury's brother. Oh, now it all makes sense, Mike. It's a family thing. 617-266-6868 is the number. Tom in Plymouth. Thanks for holding, Tom, and welcome.
Hi, Jeff. Thanks for taking my call.
My pleasure.
A couple of points there. I just want to headline a couple of points, and I'll come back and backfill them. One, the Federal Reserve funds the deep state, number one. Number two, it privatizes profit and socializes risk. In other words, we get stiff with the bill. And number three, who the hell needs it in this day and age in the form that's in with the modern technology we have? And as far as the deep state, think of things like the Green New Scam, Ukraine, what have you, right? They passed this legislation. We don't have the money. Trillions of dollars, for the Green New Scam, for example. Federal Reserve prints the money, and we get stiff with the inflation.
Bingo.
Okay?
Bingo. You laid it out beautifully. Tom, for the lay person out there, in other words, we can send money all over the world, missiles, weapons, it's all, and, we're losing money hand over fist. You can fund the Green New Deal, all these outrageous, government projects that we can't afford, rack up trillions of dollars in deficits every year, a $37 trillion debt, which will bankrupt our country. But in the end, the Fed is there to just keep printing and printing and printing. And it drives up inflation, which means we're all paying for it. And that's the danger of the Federal Reserve. And that's why the Federal Reserve is necessary for the deep state, for socialism, and for the New World Order. You laid it out beautifully, Steve. Sorry, Tom, my bad. Tom, please continue.
Okay, thank you. Remember the housing crisis, 2009?
Yes.
First, that was manufactured by the Clintons. They passed this thing called the Community Reinvestment Act. I think Carter passed it. Clinton put it on steroids. They did subprime mortgages, to try to get, minorities and others to buy houses. They took over Fannie and Freddie, created variable rate mortgages, and and then the Federal Reserve on the Bernanke, you can see that stair-step graph. All they did was raise interest rates for about a year. Everybody couldn't pay their variable rate mortgages, which changes with the Fed rates. And foreclosures started happening all over the place. The stock market plummeted. Oh, huge drop. 401ks, people's homes, lost value. Not one person on Wall Street lost their equity, lost their jobs, lost their, their stock options, paychecks, bonuses. Nobody. But what did the Fed do? Printed and printed and printed and bailed out the financial industry. Hence, socialized the risk. We get all the losses, they get all the gains. And it was just disgraceful. And number three, I'll close on this, Jeff. With modern technology, artificial intelligence, IT, who the hell needs all these bureaucrats? Why do we need these buildings? Why do we need these offices? Why do we need these bureaucrats? A lot of this stuff could be automated. First, it should be re-engineered and redesigned to find out whether we need the damn thing. But if we do need a couple of functions, most of it can be automated. We don't need it in its current form. Get rid of it.
Tom, you sound like Elon. And I don't mean that as an insult. I mean the exact opposite. It's a compliment. You're absolutely correct. Not 100, as I like to say, but 1,000% correct on every single point. Tom, let me ask you this. You tell me if you agree or disagree. Say just if I could wave my magic wand. Say, I got a genie and the genie gives me a magic wand. And they go, okay, I'm going to give you this wish. What's your wish? And I say, get rid of the Federal Reserve. Just abolish it. Eliminate it. Bang, it's gone. So say for the sake of argument, Tom, it's gone. Okay, the Kuhner man, by waving the wand, abracadabra, and bang, the Federal Reserve is gone. By not having a Federal Reserve, would this not force the federal government, in fact, every government, state government, local government, but let's just stick to the federal government, would that not force the federal government to have to balance their books? In other words, the only way they can continue to run these reckless runaway deficits and pile up this preposterous debt is because of the Federal Reserve. Take away the Federal Reserve, and it's like you're forcing the government now to be fiscally responsible with our money, to balance the books, balance the budget, and inevitably scale back so much spending. Am I wrong, Tom?
No, I'm totally with you, Jeff. For example, how we raise the debt ceilings all the time. That's just pretty much giving everybody a blank check, unlimited credit card. And if that's stopped because we don't have the Federal Reserve to print money in the form that they do, it's going to force our government to live within their means. It's going to force them to live within our constitutional republic the way it was laid out and come to the people and justify what they want to spend the money on. Now, maybe there's a provision for war some kind of emergency, but mainly a war. But as far as everything else is concerned, live within your damn means. They don't have a revenue problem. They have a cost problem.
You nailed it. Tom, Professor, your nickname now is Professor Tom. And what's great is you're not a professor who talks above people's heads because it's all about you trying to sound smart. It's you communicating simply, effectively, right to the point. You gave a dissertation in 3 minutes on exactly why the Federal Reserve is so evil and why it's the linchpin of the New World Order. Tom, dynamite call. What do I keep telling all of you? Best audience in the business, period. 617-266-6868. And just to push it one more step further, because Tom is right. Our founding fathers would say, and those who founded our constitutional republic would say, well, you're going to run a balanced book, balanced budget. You're going to live within your means. That's the way it's supposed to do it. Okay, I understand. If there's a real emergency, a genuine emergency, a war, whatever. Now, imagine if we would all have to buy bonds to fund or finance a war. Probably they're going to have to raise our taxes dramatically to pay for all this extra military spending. So now we're all really invested. In other words, boy, our taxes really going up. Oh, we're buying bonds. We're buying, like, money's flowing out of our pockets. What do you think the pressure is then on the politicians? We got to end this war now. In other words, we can't do an Iraq or an Afghanistan or a Vietnam where this thing goes on year after year after year because of deficit funding. In other words, hey, we're taking a lot of money out of people's, paychecks to fund this thing. That's a lot of their treasure. We're going to end it. We're going to win it. And we're going to win it quickly and decisively. So you have Congress then declare the war. You have a war declaration, a declaration of war. And then we go and we win the war. And the war is over quickly with a final decisive victory. And then people say, okay, no more deficits, no more debt. You return spending to what it was before the war. And people's taxes start to come way down. That's how you function in a constitutional republic. So what I'm saying is you wouldn't just have endless debt and deficits and borrowing and spending, but you would also end endless war. The Federal Reserve is an evil monster. 617-266-6868. Brian in North Attleboro. Thanks for holding, Brian, and welcome.
Jeff, appreciate you taking the call.
My pleasure, Brian.
Yeah, on the question about the Fed, if it's really not in Trump's power to fire Powell, then I don't think he should do so. Even so, I think MAGA is going to run over things if they prolong rates being dropped. I think it's going to make a wave even bigger for MAGA than anything the Dems would ever want. So it'd be their mistake there, I think. But the other day you had a caller, someone texted in about how the shoe was on the other foot with the judicial system here. Trump had done all the stuff Obama's done. My thought there, one thing I didn't mention was, if Trump had done all this stuff that the Obama regime has done, even the Republican people would want Donald Trump out of office.
Oh, of course.
The Dems are not that way.
Oh, you're dead on. Brian, you're absolutely correct. It's not just that he would have been indicted and arrested. Hell, they would have strung him up, okay, by now. If he, I remember what I said yesterday, if people have forgotten or didn't tune in at that time. I read a great text from someone who said, Jeff, imagine everything now that we've witnessed about Obama, that we've learned about Obama, how he hatched this conspiracy to frame Trump as an agent of Russia in order to sabotage, undermine, and eventually overthrow his presidency. Imagine if Trump did it. Everything else is the same. Just replace Obama with Trump. So Trump met at December 9, met with his national security team, said, no, we're not going to abide by the intelligence. We're going to make up this hoax. We're going to frame the incoming president. Okay, I said, imagine if Trump did that. I said, well, what do you think the Democrats would do? And it's obvious. He would have been arrested, indicted, in handcuffs 2 days ago. Okay, forget an investigation. He'd be frog marched as we speak. And Brian now says, and we would support it. Of course we would. We would not care if the president is a Republican or a Democrat. If we found this out, that these kinds of high crimes and misdemeanors were committed, we would automatically say that person's got to go. A traitor is a traitor is a traitor. And a seditious conspiracy is a seditious conspiracy. Period. Full stop. And that's the difference between us and them. If you really want to get to the heart of the issue, we're patriots. They're not. We love this republic and the Constitution. They hate it. They despise it. And that's the fundamental dividing line. Brian, outstanding call. 617-266-6868. Just super quick. The reason why this scandal, this corruption scandal, and by the way, he perjured himself. He lied about the cost overruns. Jerome Powell did, under oath. The reason why this is such an explosive story, it's not just, the corruption and the bribery and the lying and the, the illegalities. But this now gives Trump the opening if he wants to fire Powell. Because now he can legitimately say, no. Yeah, I want him to lower interest rates, but I'm not firing him for that. I'm not firing him because he won't lower the rates. In other words, I'm not denying the quote-unquote independence of the Federal Reserve. I'm firing him because crimes have been committed by him. He's a criminal. Now, he can't fire. What he has to do is Pam Bondi has to indict, and charges have to be leveled. And once charges are leveled, then Trump can easily say, he's compromised. Hey, this guy's going to go to court. This guy's a crook. And he's now got these charges he's got to defend himself from. This guy can no longer, in good conscience, run the Federal Reserve. He's got a massive conflict of interest. I can't have a crook now, or an alleged crook, running the Federal Reserve. That's why, look at that criminal referral by Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna. She's got the goods on Powell because he lied to her and the committee that she sat on. And so she now sent a criminal referral to Pam Bondi at the DOJ. And she said, listen, he perjured himself. And he perjured himself about the corruption, the cost overruns, the inexplicable money that he can't explain is going down some kind of a dark hole. It's a black hole, and he can't explain at least $1 billion worth of taxpayer dollars. So it's fraud, it's embezzlement, and it's perjury. And she's saying, what are you waiting for? Indict the guy. So that's why I'm telling you, on Wall Street and in Vegas, but on Wall Street, the betting odds are Powell will not finish his term, which is going to be later this year or early next year. But anyway, it's about maybe 6 months away, ballpark. So he's not finishing his term because he's going to be forced to step down because of these charges and these indictments that are now going to be coming. So all I'm saying is, so that, Brian understands my position, I'm not just saying, hey, fire him, like, snap my fingers. This scandal paves the way now for Trump to legitimately say, you're gone. You got to go. We can't have a crook as the chair of the Federal Reserve and as someone who lied under oath to Congress. That's why now you saw how much he squirmed. And especially when Trump came out with that letter that he had in his pocket, yeah, now you guys are claiming it's going to cost us $3.2 billion. So you guys are now so you went from 1.9 to 2.7 billion. That's an $800 million cost overrun. Now we're looking at a 1.2, $1.3 billion cost overrun? Are you serious? Now, Powell's going to have to explain this. He can't. He can't. I could buy you 5 Taj Mahal. I could build you, me, the Kuhner man. I'm not even a construction guy. I'll just get an honest contractor. Okay, and he'll make they will make outstanding money on this. Here's $3 billion. Get me 5 Taj Mahals. You got it. I could build you the Egyptian pyramids, for God's sake, with $3 billion. 617-266-6868 is the number. Frank in Bedford. Thanks for holding, Frank, and welcome.
Good morning. I haven't talked to you all winter. I miss you. You should have took the M&M job. With Biden, you would have been a millionaire. Okay, number one, I want to congratulate you. You're waking everybody up. I've been listening. I'm going to try to give some hope and some perspective. Yesterday, you had a military guy on and said everything should be going into the military and the tribunals. Trump just announced he's going after who? Everybody. Clintons, Obama, and so forth. He put the word out, okay? So by doing that, from what I understand, he knows he has a rogue government. I do believe, without us knowing, the military is already involved. So there's your hope. Down below, you're waking up everybody on what's going on with the financial structure, the housing, and all that. And you're doing a great job that people are waking up. So now he doesn't have to worry about Civil War. You've done a great job. You're educating people on everything. Now, what happens what I understand, he can't touch what's going on down below till he finishes up above. In other words, the court system, Maura Healey doing all this crazy stuff. He has to take the government first. What he's hoping, in my opinion, is that we step in. For instance, Maura Healey is doing what? Whatever she wants. If you take a ride with Sandy and Mike and go down and say, I like to where she lives, you're cruising along, what do you think they're doing? They're building $1 million condos. If you stop at Mass Ave, near a fire station where there's old houses in the 1800s that they haven't been able to steal from the trying to force them out. They're going to fight it out. They're right beside a complex that is up high. I think it's 1, 2, 3, 4 stories high. Guess how much the top floor goes for? $1 million. Which
Wow.
what does what? Inflates the house next door. If Trump does not get rid of the local taxes, she will lose a house, but they're not going to fight it. So here you are looking at $1 million house because of these people. What is he doing? Making us so we can't compete in society before Trump gets in. So up top, what are you looking at? You got a fire station down below.
No, Frank, look, you're right. This is what's happening now in all these blue cities. You touched on it. So even my wonderful sister's husband, my brother-in-law, Marty, out in Tucson, Arizona, a doctor, by the way, very good doctor. Jeff, you are right. Powell is the Fauci of the economy. Fire him. And my brother-in-law goes on, he's a crook. It's obvious he's a crook. And he's obviously sabotaging Trump by artificially keeping interest rates high. He's a tool of the deep state and, of course, clearly an anti-Trumper. And he's now trying to undermine Trump's presidency by undermining the economy and the American people. So even my brother-in-law is now saying get rid of Jerome Powell. Okay, I want you to listen now to this. Again, best audience in the business. This is from 603. You can text the Kuhner Man, 70470, 70470. Well, just look a here. Thomas Jefferson agrees with the Kuhner Man 1,000%. Imagine that. Here is a very famous quote from one of our greatest, and then this is all in caps, wisest founding fathers as to the dangers of central banking institutions, which they had in Europe, and to the activities they engage in, which are so financially destructive to the populace, to the people. Just thought I'd throw this old classic your way, Jeff. Well, here is the quote, and it's true. It's one of his most famous quotes. So this is straight from, the genius. He was one of the great geniuses of history, one of our greatest founding fathers, Thomas Jefferson. Now listen to what he said about central banks and think about the Federal Reserve. I mean, they foresaw the future. Here is Thomas Jefferson. Quote, I sincerely believe that banking establishments are more dangerous than standing armies, and that the principle of spending money to be paid by posterity, i.e. the future citizens, in other words, deficits, under the name of funding is but swindling futurity, the future, on a large scale. In other words, it's theft. It's a crime. Basically, what he's saying is it's a crime. You're essentially swindling. You're robbing future generations. That's what a central bank enables you to do. And it's death to a republic. It's death. Let me read it again. And again, look how eloquent they used to write in those days. The command of the English language, the power of the English language. I couldn't turn a phrase like this. This is beautiful. Quote, I sincerely believe that banking establishments are more dangerous than standing armies. And again, remember, it was the British standing army that unleashed all the abuses that triggered the American Revolution. So what Jefferson is really saying is they're almost worse than what the British did to us. In fact, they are worse than what the British did to us, which led to our revolution. I sincerely believe that banking establishments are more dangerous than standing armies, and that the principle of spending money to be paid by posterity under the name of funding is but swindling futurity on a large scale. Futurity as in future generations. 617, boy, did he nail it, huh? I say this all the time. All we have to do is we don't have to reinvent the wheel. Just go back to the founding fathers. They laid it all out for us on every issue. 617-266-6868 is the number. Matt in Everett. Thanks for holding, Matt, and welcome.
Hey, Jeff, how are you?
I'm very good. How are you?
I just want to give you a few facts that complement what other people have been saying about the Federal Reserve. Basically, the Federal Reserve was formed by bankers for bankers. And during the 1920s, we were still on the gold standard, and the gold standard worked very well for the economy as a whole. Once we started through the Roosevelt administration getting rid of the gold standard, we didn't have anything. And Nixon, of course, as you know, got rid of the gold standard entirely. But the fact remains that the gold standard was really a good situation for the country. And furthermore, I don't think Trump can fire him, really, because there is a set pattern of 4-year terms for the Federal Reserve chairman. And on top of that is the fact that we should get rid of the Federal Reserve. It's not useful anymore. Because one more thing I would say to you, Jeff, if you look at the history of the Federal Reserve, they've always made mistakes, and that's why this economy went down. One good example is what happened during the Roosevelt administration. When Roosevelt was putting money into the economy, the Federal Reserve was taking it out because they feared inflation, where there was no inflation. So that's my point, Jeff. You're right. Your other callers are right, but we should now, probably you should talk to Ron Paul, the senator there, and he's the one that wants to get rid of the Federal Reserve, period.
Yeah, no, Rand Paul is superb on the Fed. And he's smart. He's very cagey. I'm not saying his dad wasn't. I think his dad was brilliant. Ron Paul, and right on many issues. But Rand Paul, he's a little cagier. He's a senator, and and to his credit, he's a well-known, very well-respected leader in the Republican Party. He says audit the Fed first. And the only reason why is he's not backing away. He's saying audit. Joining us now, as she always does at this time, the co-founder, CEO, president of Kelly Financial Services. And yes, that is her wonderful name, Kelly. Kelly, how are you?
Good morning, Jeff. I am good. Summer's a time for beach days and barbecues, but it's also the perfect moment to hit pause and check in on your retirement strategy. Are your savings, your spending, and your income goals still on track for the year? At Kelly Financial, we put together a free resource to help. It's called Your Retirement Income Planning Checklist. It walks you through 10 key areas that every retiree should review, from Social Security and taxes to budgeting and doing a mid-year checkup to stay on course. And this checklist goes even further. It covers how to plan for inflation, how to think about income distribution in retirement, and where certain financial products might help protect your future. It's practical, straightforward, and built for real-world use. To get your free guide or speak to one of our Kelly advisors, just give us a call or email us at kelly@kellyfinancial.org. Jeff, I'll continue this conversation with our Kelly advisors tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. on Safe Money Strategies Radio. Do tune in or visit our website for the radio rewind. Jeff, have a wonderful weekend. My best to Grace and the kiddos.
Thank you, Kelly. All the best to you and everyone at Kelly Financial. To get a free copy of that guide, and I urge all of you, if you can, do get it. Call now, 888-800-1881, 888-800-1881, or you can actually email Kelly herself personally, kelly@kellyfinancial.org. That's kelly@kellyfinancial.org. Okay, thank you again, Kelly. All right, my friends, just very quick. It's it's been a very intense week, obviously, with all of the bombshell revelations that Tulsi Gabbard has revealed about the dear leader Barack Hussein Obama, and clearly the treason that he and his entire national security team and the deep state committed, not just against Trump, but against our country, against us, the voters, and against our republic. So many of you are asking the Kuhner man, Jeff, what is besides interest rates, what is another major factor that is driving, I'm just going to use Boston as an example, but this is New York, Chicago, L.A., Atlanta, Philadelphia, Baltimore. I could go on and on. What's driving so much of this, this inflation, these soaring, insane prices for condominiums, for homes, for rent, these rental units? And look, it's the elephant in the room. It's illegal immigration. Under Joe Biden, when you bring in over 15 to 20 million illegals, most of whom live or congregate in big blue cities, they got to live somewhere, especially with the government giving them free public housing or giving them vouchers or paying for them to pay for their rent or whatever, helping them buy a home or buy an apartment or buy a condo or whatever. So the fact of the matter is, you're bringing in an extra 15 to 20 million people and putting them in these dense urban areas. Yeah, the price of homes, apartments, condos, rent are going to go through the roof. And that's exactly what happened over the last 4 to 5 years, to the point that I'm telling you, I don't know how people live in Boston or New York. I look at, or Chicago, or I look at $3,000 for a small studio apartment. Who can afford that? Now, he's finally breaking his silence. Hunter Biden, I'm not kidding, defending his dad, defending the Biden legacy. Because now everybody is dumping on the old man. Everybody now. James Carville came out with a big piece in the New York Times saying the Democratic Party, his words, is constipated. It's in a shambles. It's a cracked out clown car. He says that's how bad the Democratic Party has degenerated in the wake of Biden's disastrous presidency and in the wake of his disastrous defeat, along with Kamala Harris. George Clooney is now saying they made the biggest mistake by sticking with Biden way too long. Obama's aides, David Axelrod, all of them. Everybody now is dumping on Biden. So, what does Crackhead do? Crackhead, listen now to this, goes on some podcast called Channel 5, never heard of it, with this absolute dweeb. Okay, you want to talk about a moron. This guy, Andrew Callahan. I mean, you look at him, you go, is this guy for real? Just his outfit, the way he dresses, the whole thing is bizarre. It's like in the Twilight Zone. Now, I don't know if Hunter was high. Honestly, I don't know if he was, sucking on that crack pipe. But every second word, it's bleep, 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 bleep. I felt sorry for Mike. Because this guy spent an hour, and all he did was just, bleep this out, bleep this. So, in a nutshell, here's what he's saying. F Obama, F Clooney, I swear to you, F Carville, F the Clintons, F Podesta, F David Plouffe, F Obama's aides, F the Democratic establishment, F the Democratic old guard, F the New York Times. It's just, everybody should just go F yourself. That's Hunter Biden's message. But where, you want to know where he really gets passionate? Where like his eyes start bulging out of his skull? On the question of illegals. Listen now to this. He's saying, no, my dad should be given an award. He's St. Joe. The Vatican should canonize him. He's the new Mother Teresa. Why? Because of all the illegals he flooded the country with. It was an incredible act of compassion, humanitarianism, that Joey is now Saint Joey. Listen now to Hunter saying how dare Trump try to deport the illegals that his old man flooded our country with. Roll cut 19, a mic.
We sit here and we talk about the one guy because there's a clear legal path to being able to get him back. What about all those other people? Am I not supposed to feel for someone? Am I going to be like all these Democrats say, you have to talk about and realize that people are really upset about illegal immigration. You. How do you think your hotel room gets cleaned? How do you think you have food on your table? Who do you think washes your dishes? Who do you think does your garden? Who do you think is here by the sheer just grit and will that they figured out a way to get here because they thought that they could give themselves and their family a better chance? And he's somehow convinced all of us that these people are the criminals? White men in America are 45 more times likely to commit a violent crime than an immigrant.
You know, I don't know about any of you, but I don't have any house servants. I wash my own dishes. We do our own bed.
Him, and everybody around him. I don't have to be nice. Number one, I agree with Quentin Tarantino. George Clooney is not a actor. He is a I don't know what he is. He's a brand. And by the way, and God bless him. You know what? He supposedly treats his friends really well. You know what I mean? Buys them things. And he's got a really great place in Lake Como. And he's great friends with Barack Obama. You, what do you have to do with anything? Why do I have to listen to you? What right do you have to step on a man who's given 52 years of his life to the service of this country and decide that you, George Clooney, are going to take out basically a full-page ad in the New York Times to me and James Carville, who hasn't run a race in 40 years, and David Axelrod, who had one success in his political life, and that was Barack Obama. And that was because of Barack Obama, not because of David Axelrod. And David Plouffe and all of these guys.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. That's Hunter on a recent podcast. 9:50 here on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's bulldozer. He is dumping on everybody. I mean, on everybody. So now the Biden family, they're just burning their bridges with everybody. Now, I want everybody to just think about this, okay? This is the guy that Joe Biden said was the smartest guy he ever knew. Do you remember that, Hunter? He's the smartest guy I ever met. Smartest guy I ever knew. He was one of the top advisors throughout Biden's entire presidency. Him and Jill. This guy was helping to run the Biden White House. Ay, ay, ay. And, you know, as many of you are pointing out about, you know, who's going to wash our dishes? Who's going to clean our linen? Who's going to do our laundry? Who's going to buy my crack? Who's going to clean my needles? Who's going to clean my crack pipe? What's the matter with you? These illegals are just here to do the jobs that Americans don't want to do. Now, listen to this one. Listen to this one. He is so mad at Trump for deporting the illegals that his old man, that his father brought in. Listen now to this. He says if he was president, he would go and invade El Salvador and take that maximum security prison that so many of them are in, you know, the MS-13 gangbangers, and free them, liberate them. Listen to this. Roll cut 20. A mic.
These guys think that we need to run away from all values in order for us to lead. I say, you. How are we getting those people back from El Salvador? Because I'll tell you what, if I became president in 2 years from now, or 4 years from now, or 3 years from now, I would pick up the phone and call the president of El Salvador and say, you either send them back or I'm going to invade. It's a crime what they're doing. He's a
Dictator thug. Bukele or Trump? Both.
Hey, I think the Democrats have found their nominee for 2028. Biden 2.0. Oh, he would do, not only would he do better than Kamala, he would do better than Joe. He's more coherent than Joe. That's how much they love their illegals. They want to invade foreign countries to liberate them from the supermax prisons that Trump is sending the gangbangers and the drug cartel guys to. I mean, you can't make this up. You can't make this up. 617-266-6868. Jimmy in Arlington. Thanks for holding, Jimmy, and welcome.
Hey, Kuhner, what's up?
F you. I'm just, go ahead, Jimmy, please. A la Hunter Biden. F you.
Yeah.
F your mother.
Hey,
F your father. Yeah, Jimmy, go ahead. Go ahead, my friend.
Hey, my question for you is, what are your thoughts on the big, beautiful bill affecting social welfare?
How do you mean affecting social welfare? You mean like Medicaid?
Yeah, stuff like that.
Well, I mean, if you look at the bill, most of the people that are affected are illegal aliens. So most of them are going to be kicked off Medicaid, and they should be kicked off Medicaid. Now, Senator Chris Murphy, Connecticut Democrat, you can look it up, went absolutely berserk yesterday and said that this is totalitarianism. He said, we're living now in a totalitarian country, in a fascist country. And when pressed, well, why? What is it that Trump has done in his first 6 months that has now turned us, as Chris Murphy put it, we're now Nazi Germany. So why are we living in a totalitarian fascist country? And his answer is, because we're taking illegal aliens off of Medicaid. Now, illegal aliens are not supposed to be on Medicaid. Medicaid is a social program designed for the poor, the disadvantaged, the disabled, pregnant women, usually single women with children. So we have put at least 4 million illegals on Medicaid. This occurred under Biden. And so it's a gross abuse of taxpayer dollars. It's against the law. Medicaid is not for non-citizens, certainly not for illegals who came into our country, who are criminals, who came into our country illegally. So it is for American citizens. And so really there's not going to be much in terms of the social programs or the social safety net. Medicaid is still fully funded. In fact, completely funded, and the only people that are going to be affected are the illegals.